Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Road to Grandmaster series. This is episode 49. This is the fourth tournament back in action, and this is by far the worst tournament that I have had thus far. I think it's tied for the worst tournament that I've ever had in my life, which the previous edition of which happened in New York City, and it was also a GM Norm Round Robin. So, yeah, something about these New York hometown sections just hasn't gone my way. But today I won, and today I played a game at 96% accuracy. Today I'm very happy, and today we will enjoy a good recap. So, in this round, I was playing Liam Putnam, who is, I don't know how old he is. He's either 13, 14, or 15. He plays a ton online. He plays like Hikaru all the time. His online ratings are like 2,900, 3,000 Blitz and Bullet. But going into this game, and really going into this tournament, I looked at the young players like potential targets because they're very unpredictable. They don't know everything about chess just yet. And I figured being double my opponent's age would be nice. Because I have some, experience to fall back on. Now, having said that, I have half out of 6, so I should shut up and, just focus on the game. I opened up with the English. I didn't know what he was going to play, but I expected e5. He played e6. I think he played e6 because he plays a lot of Nimso Indian and Queen's Gambit Decline stuff, so it sort of makes sense to play like this. And I think he saw my other games against the Grandmasters, where I wasn't particularly convincing with the white pieces. So he played e6. Unfortunately for him, this game, I was going to put my light squared bishop on this diagonal and play this like a neo-Catalan, with d4, c4, knight f3, bishop g2. He played d5, I played bishop g2, and already, from spending 3 minutes developing his knight, I kind of got a sense that, something is not quite right? I mean, obviously he had not prepared this because there was no way he could have expected this. Also, I'm not sure I've ever played this in a tournament, so there you go. I played knight f3. Now black can basically not take on c4. He can play like bishop e7 and so on. He took on c4, and I played queen a4 check, and the idea is basically you get an expedited Catalan. So you played a Catalan, white took back the c4 pawn very quickly. Black is left with one central pawn, you have 2, and now black generally chooses some sort of setup. There was also a setup here, bishop d7, queen c4, c5, knight e5, queen c8, and you grab the bishop, and you argue you have some advantage. You don't have any advantage whatsoever, but at least you have a powerful light squared bishop. The engine gives always some microscopic plus. Liam played knight bd7, and then he played a6. The idea is to play b5 and quickly develop the bishop. Now, generally, white will drop back the queen to either of these two squares. Queen c2 is the move marginally preferred by the computer. And now, like 90% of top-level games go pawn to c5 because black needs to fight for the center and then develop like this. Now, he went here. Off the bat, I was like, the bishop doesn't go there. After black plays c5, black almost always puts the bishop on e7. Almost always. Almost always. But first, actually, what black is supposed to do is finish up the development of the queen side, like queen c7, so you don't even touch this bishop. So I think the actual meta strategy is to play like rook b8, get out of the way of any discovered attacks, and then play bishop b7, and then and only then do you touch this bishop. He went here, though, and I quickly castled because I actually wanted to play really fast this game because I was really mad I had half a point out of 6. I didn't want to think, should I play e4? Should I play d4? I'm just going to castle. And he castled. And I was pretty certain here that because he hasn't played c5, I should play d4. But then I didn't know what to do against c5. So this is the problem with playing a system for the first time in your life. I mean, I've played this in a little bit of Blitz and Bullet. And the reason for this is I'm still trying to figure out exactly what my opening repertoire should be for 2,400 plus chess. The truth is, I would love to memorize a bunch of open Sicilian cutting edge theory, knight f3, play into the... I don't have the time. I just don't have the time. I'm getting there. Like, that's the truth. Between running this channel, running Chessly, all the other stuff I have to commit to, I don't have the time to study the Open Sicilian anywhere near as much as I would like. So instead what I do is I study the Neo-Catalan because there are like 2 to 3 main plans. And I kind of know very quickly where the theory ends. So I thought about d4 here. But what I didn't understand is what to do after c5. Well, what to do after c5 apparently is I could just play rook d1. And if like he plays queen c7, I was thinking to play knight a3 and put the knight on c4. And basically, if this ever happens, we trade the queens and I get knight d4. Because of his diagonal, he's always worse. It's just very hard for him to make some developing moves. Like, he'll play rook d8. I'll develop a piece. I can even go back to b3. It's just hard for him to move, you know? Hard for him to make a move. Instead of that, I went b3, which is not the best move because it allows him to play c5 quite quickly. And he did that. And I played bishop to b2, and he played queen e7. But even queen e7 I thought was the wrong setup. I thought the queen belonged on c7. If he was going to put the queen anywhere, I thought it belonged on c7, followed by the development of his queenside. Keep in mind, I was not really thinking too much at this point of like, did I give up my advantage? Should I have played d4? Because I'm going to be completely honest with you, I was more than happy to draw this game. Like, half out of 6, dude. I'm just trying to end the tournament. That's just the reality. I would love to sit here and be all high and mighty and tell you guys, like, you got to have a fighting spirit. You got to fight to the death every game. When you lose 5 out of 6 games, your fighting spirit's gone. Like, you must have unbelievably high level of psychology. And I don't have that right now. I don't have it. I'm just telling you very openly and honestly. Like, I'd be happy with a draw. I don't lose any rating. Let's go home. Then he went here. And I was like, okay, d4 time. And again, after cd4, I was going to go knight d4, and I was simply going to rely on this bishop. I know that because I have this very strong Catalan bishop, I always have an advantage. And I played d4. He played rook b8, so he's obviously trying to get this going. And I figured I got to act now, because if I play knight bd2, he's going to play b5. I don't get my knight to c4, so I played e4. And I'm trying to play e5. So now he has to take on d4. He could also play e5, but I don't think you want to allow the position to close like this. I just don't think it's very pleasant for black. So I played e4. He took. And now he would love to kick my knight out, except for the fact that it would allow knight f5, which doesn't lose... Oh, it does lose material, bishop a3. Yeah. So he can't do that. So knight t4. And he can't play b5 because knight c6. So I stop his 2 major pawn advantage. Now, the move I was really worried about here was g6. Because now he can play e5. I had no idea what to do if he was going to play g6. I was like sitting at the board looking at g6 going, well, he stops knight f5. Like, what do I do? I was thinking knight d2, but then there's e5. So I can't play knight d2. So then I was like, well, he's going to go e5, so I'll play knight c3. Okay, e5, I drop back, then I try to put my knight on d5. But, like, he gets his whole setup. So I had no idea what to do against g6. I mean, f4 never works. It just doesn't work. It's too aggressive. He just plays e5. The engine here gives moving the queen, e5, and then putting the knight on c2, which I might have figured out, but I gotta tell you, I was sitting at the board going, yo, if he plays g6, I straight up got no idea what to do. Now, my opponent is not having the best tournament either, actually. He's lost several games. So it's kind of fitting he plays rook d8, which is not the best move. It's not the best move because it doesn't enable e5. And now I play knight d2 with a very clear plan of knight c4 and taking the bishop and just being slightly better. Now, at this point, I'm sitting, and I'm still wondering what if he goes g6. I'm also wondering, I want to go knight here, so why doesn't he go knight e5? And I had another idea here. I could play f4, but I rejected f4 because he very quickly organizes counterplay against my king. And he's threatening this, then he can sacrifice. He's going to take on d4. He's actually going to take on d4 with the rook, maybe. I can't take because it's a fork, so very bad stuff here. So I played knight d2. I was expecting knight e5 because, again, after f4, he has bishop c5. If fe, he has rook d4, which is kind of absurd. And then we trade everything, and it's not good for me. And he spent some time and went knight f8. He spent 10 minutes, and he went there. And again, he's also not playing that great this tournament. And I looked at that move like, that's got to be a bad move. Like, why is he putting the knight on f8 for? Should have been more active. I get it. He's trying to maybe play bishop d7. Now, all right, again, my original thought here was to play knight c4. Okay, knight c4. But then bishop c5. And I didn't know what to do here. I didn't know how to make progress. My knights kind of can't really move forward. Okay, I can play rook d1, rook c1, etc. I can play these easy moves. I actually played the best move here. Somewhere in here, my brain came back. My instinct came back. Some of my confidence came back. I started understanding the position pretty well. And I played knight to f3, which is funny because in Italy, I played a move similar to this, like moving the knight out of the center. And I guess it still fights for the center. And I remember coach was telling me, don't move. If a piece stands well in the center, don't move it out of the center. I don't know if this piece was standing that well in the center. But the point of knight f3 is I open the diagonal for my bishop and I threaten pawn to b5. So I'm threatening a fork, and it's kind of disturbing his equilibrium. Like, if he moves one piece out of the way, I'm going to go e5. He loses the fight for the center. If he plays bishop c7, that bishop is just the target for my rook, right? So it's not an easy... If he plays e5, then I was going to go knight c4. He's probably going to just straight up lose this pawn. I don't know what he's going to do. Knight d7, knight d6. I mean, it's just, his position is falling apart, right? Horrendous. So he went bishop c5. And here I had one of two plans. I didn't know which one was better. Plan one was attack his knight. Knight goes here. Attack his bishop. He defends it. Or, if he moves, I put the knight on d6. I'm chilling. I don't have to even calculate. Like, I know it's good for me. This knight is just super annoying. It just pressures every, part of his position. Bishop d7. I don't know. I don't know what I would do here. Queen e4, I don't know. Bishop a3 is nice. A lot of nice moves. Maybe this is not even a nice move, but whatever. That was plan one. Plan two was the plan that I played in the game, which is this funny move. I thought this move was hilarious. It felt wrong, but now he's got to go rook a8, which just looks depressing. And now rook c1. And the point was that if he plays bishop to a3, I was even considering just going into his position, but even something like bishop, I actually thought knight c4 here was also kind of cool. Knight c4 takes and knight b6, or rook c1 and then knight b6. And I didn't know how he was going to stop knight b6. It's not hard. It's not easy to stop. For example, knight d7, I go here, like bishop c7, knight d, this position is horrendous. Now, that was one of the plans, and I played that plan. And what's funny is that during this tournament, I have been in multiple situations where I saw plan A and plan B, and I chose wrong without failure every single time. And this is yet again a moment where I chose a bad plan. And I allow him to equalize the position, and now he's just ready with bishop to b7. And when he played b6, he stared at me. He played b6, he kind of looked at me like, damn, you're ugly. And I was like, wow, I have half out of 6 and I'm ugly? Crazy. That's nuts, Liam. I don't know why you would have those thoughts. It's really mean. And I knew right away I messed up. But I saw that it was not over. And I saw that if he wasn't careful, he could find himself in some trouble. Yeah, I mean, I should have, the bishop doesn't belong there. I had to have, I even saw this plan, this nice plan. I don't know. It's been that kind of a tournament. You get a nice position with some pressure, rook c1, rook d1, b4, and you just choose wrong. You choose wrong every single time without fail. So b6, knight c4, and I saw a trick here. I don't think he saw the move that I was about to play. Otherwise, he would have played a5. And after a5, I think the game is just, the game is dead. I remember looking at the board going, oh, if he plays a5, that's it. His next move is bishop b7 and rook c8. I play rook e1, bishop b7. Black is even better because I put the bishop here. So I had this moment that I've been having throughout the tournament of kind of like, wow, I did it again. I messed it up again. That's crazy. Every time this tournament that I've settled down for 10, 15 minutes and had a thought, it was a bad thought. It was not clean. I missed some of my opponent's resources. And it's only gotten worse and worse during the tournament because obviously I'm not confident. Also, I might be a little bit under the weather, but that's not really an excuse. Just, but he went here and he allowed me to play my only trick, which was pawn to b4, which was very nice. Now he has to part ways with his b6 pawn, and he allows me to put some pressure on him. If bishop e4, my queen's hanging, but guess what? This is defended by a knight, and when I take the knight, the queen's also hanging. So he would take, I would take, and then I would take one of the bishops, and I would be winning. So b6, he plays, takes, knight b6, and now his best move is to counter-attack my rook, which is not very obvious, but the simple point is that it's not easy for me to move my rook anywhere. If rook b1, now he can take because then he's going to win a rook. And if rook d1, he can trade and move the rook to safety. And then if rook a1, now he plays rook a7, and I don't get what I got in the game, which was a very active rook. So basically, he just forces me to have a passive rook. And also, if I take his rook, he takes my rook, and maybe I'm slightly better, but it's not what happens in the game, because in the game, he plays rook a7. And here, right here, despite having half at a 6, despite being a bit under the weather, besides being exhausted, I had my clearest thought of the tournament. And this was a big moment because I realized, like, I can do it. So I want to make progress into the black position. I wanted to play bishop c7, but it simply fails to bishop takes e4. The bishop takes e4 and knight takes e4 are always there. I wanted to play knight d4, which looks completely crushing because I'm simply going to play knight c6. But he jumps out and suddenly my bishop is really bad. So the problem is that these attacks are always there. So here I was like, I want to move my queen and I want to play rook c7. Now I want to play queen b2. Queen b2 looks fantastic. But there's bishop a3. So then I was like, I want to play queen a4. But if queen a4, he plays bishop c5, and he attacks my knight. I don't have a good square for the knight. So I came up with queen b3, with the simple idea to play rook to c7, which basically wins the game. Because if I get my rook to c7, he has to block, and I play rook d1, and he can't move, without exaggeration, he can't move a single piece. It's the worst position I think anyone's ever had, ever. So the idea of queen b3 was to play rook c7. If he played a5 here, I was going to play rook c7, and when he blocked, I was simply going to play like queen e3 with a direct attack ready on this rook, which can't move because it needs to guard the bishop. I mean, you talk about the worst position ever. Bishop c5 looks like it does something, just bishop d4 takes, queen d4. He can't move. He can't go here. I attack his queen, I'm attacking everything is falling apart. Queen b3. Now, on queen b3, I had also calculated that if he moves the bishop to c5, I now drop my knight out of the position, and it's really hard for him to guard the bishop. He can't guard it. Why? Because of bishop d6. I take, fork. Now his plan here was to take the pawn finally. Now he's guarding the bishop. But now I take the bishop, takes, and the only move to keep the advantage. Queen b6. Everything looks like it's falling apart. It looks like I'm just winning the game here. I thought I was really close to winning the game. But I realized that his idea, I realized this when he went for this, I realized that his point was to take, to insert this capture, because suddenly the queen is protecting the rook. Right? He got rid of some of his problems, but I had calculated this far in my mind, and I didn't know what he was supposed to do here, because I'm threatening the knight, and when the knight moves, my plan was bishop c7, hitting his rook and hitting the other rook now. That's it, the game is over. He takes here, I take, I'm threatening everything, right? Rook d7, I take the rook. He takes, I go here. Now, I got a little lucky. I'm gonna show you what happened. Because in the game, and also knight a4, very easy, the knight is stuck, right? So in the game, after takes, he played the move f6, hitting my bishop. The first thought I had here, first thought that crossed my mind is, hey, what if I abandon the whole, like, crazy bishop c7? What if I just take? He has to take with the pawn, because otherwise I take his rook. Now I play rook c5. I'm not up any material, but I have a great bishop. I broke his structure up. And my plan could be rook c6, and I just feast on the 6th rank. This feels like a typical Catalan bishop type of endgame. It looks great. And I go, okay, yeah, I see that, right? I don't get it though. What if I just go bishop f4? Nothing changed. He still can't go knight d3 because I play bishop c7. Now, what's the insane thing is, now he can go knight d3. And this is the difference. I didn't see this. In the previous position, if he had gone knight d3, bishop c7, rook d7, I take the rook, he takes my rook, I take, queen a3 is a fork. Now I bring the queen back to e3. If take, and I'm up a piece, he has rook d3. Queen e1, rook f3, and in this position, the only winning move is bishop a5. Threatening bishop b4 and rook c8. And I get to the king. There is no defense because he cannot stop back rank checkmate and he can't stop the knight from hanging. The difference in the game is that after the move f6, I thought there was no difference. Knight d3, bishop c7, rook d7, queen a7, knight c1, rook c1, queen a3, queen e3, rook d3, queen e1, rook f3, bishop a5 in this position. He can play king f7. And the difference is that the king runs out before bishop b4 comes in. That's what I missed. Now, the most insane thing about it is, after the game, he asked me, did you see this line? First of all, it felt like he was flexing on me that he's a genius and I got super lucky. And I looked at a friend of mine and was like, it helps to be an idiot. Ignorance is bliss. The only difference that I thought between these two squares, I'll show you. The only difference is after this, his knight in the previous position couldn't escape. That's it. I thought there was no difference. I thought I'm winning no matter what. I thought f6 was some sort of desperate move. I even saw the line of bishop f6, rook c5. It was my first instinct. But like has happened the entire tournament, my first instinct is always, almost always decent. And then I don't play it. And he could have saved the game here. He didn't. He played knight a4, queen a5, knight b2, and now I found a very nice sequence, bishop c7. So now he's disconnected here. And now the only winning move, which is bishop d6. And I calculated now that the queen has to guard the rook. And after I take, I have a fork. And queen d8. Very fancy move now. I sack my queen. If he takes, it's mate. And here I blitzed out queen b6 and was like, oh, it's a fork. But this is the kind of tournament I'm having. I mean, I can just take the knight. If he takes with the queen, it's the same fork. If he takes with the king, it's a fork here. If he plays knight c4, I can go here, for example. All right, like knight c4, I even thought I had queen c5. I don't have queen c5 because rook c7. But yeah. But okay, I play queen b6. And he can defend here by playing knight c4, giving me the rook and doing this. Okay, he will lose because my rook is just simply too strong. But he went queen d7, and this just simply loses. I can take on f8. But then he has this, and it's a little tricky, but the simplest is queen b8. Now I threaten checkmate. I threaten the knight. I threaten, everything. If king f7, I have a really beautiful checkmate, which is bishop h5. And whatever he blocks with, even if it's the knight, queen f8 is mate, which is very pretty. And I won, and I felt nothing. I mean, I didn't even feel relief. I really didn't. I mean, it's a good win. He's a high-rated player. He's going to be GM, I imagine, in the next 2 to 3 years. But I'll take it. But even in this game, I did 2 things that were very bad. And it's not about being hard on myself. It's just that I got fortunate that these 2 mistakes didn't put me in a worse position. They just put me in an equal position for a moment. In one of them, he had to find a long sequence, which turns out he saw. And in the other one, yeah, it was a little challenging. So the other one was just earlier in the game. It was not challenging. Rather, I'm tired. I'm just saying things. If he played a5 here, the game is probably over. I don't have another way to conjure up anything. I could play for e5. I mean, he just goes bishop b6. All his pieces are now out, and it's likely to just end in a draw. So I won. 1.5 out of 7. 2 more rounds to go. And when you watch this recap, I'm probably flying because I'm going to be on the way to Paris for the Speeches Championship finale. Yes, I'm recording the recaps slightly in delay. But hopefully you still like to hear my thoughts. This tournament can't end soon enough, and there is much more hilarious stuff to come. Get out of here.